So to kick things off, first up we have Sheldon McCormick. He's the co-founder and COO of Properly. This is a company that he co-founded in February 2018, so it's just a baby. Before Properly, Sheldon spent 4 years at Uber, most recently as the GM for ride-sharing in Ontario. He started his career at Monitor Group, where he led a wide variety of consulting engagements related to corporate and business unit strategy. He hails from Cape Breton Island, but currently lives in Toronto. He's always happy to meet with any fellow exiled Maritimers who are living in Toronto. He's getting married in 3 weeks, and this presentation is his way, one of his creative ways to procrastinate from planning that wedding. And he once, I don't know, Jason's not here to confirm this, but he once met Tech Toronto co-founder Jason Goldust in an Uber pool, but Jason doesn't remember it. All right, awesome. Pardon me? Sounds like him, right? All right, welcome to the stage, Sheldon. Forward, backwards.
Okay, I'll almost certainly flick the wrong way. Let's see. Yeah, thank you very much for having me. We're, as you said, we're a year and a half old at Properly, so if we're invited to do something like this, we're really excited about it. Jason did meet me in an Uber pool last year, and I saw him at a TechTO event a few months ago, and he actually, turns out he has a list of people that he met in an Uber pool, which I thought was really interesting. Sadly, I wasn't on the list, but I know I met him. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about real estate. First of all, Properly. We are a technology company that purchases homes directly from sellers. So we're a little bit unique in that we're online, offline business, and we offer an alternative. So for people who want to list their property, we're an alternative to that. The traditional route is you put your house online with a real estate agent. Usually it takes a few months to close. You get your money and you move on. With us, we can close in as little as a week. So something a little bit different. Today I'm going to make a very quick argument that real estate might be one of the most overlooked areas for FinTech applications, and particularly in Canada. I'll talk a little bit about why I think that is, and then we'll share some early learnings from the past 1.5 year building Properly. Why is this potentially a really cool area for FinTech in Canada? It's an absolutely massive market, both in terms of the absolute scale. It's a $250 billion market each year in Canada. That's about 500,000 transactions a year at an average transaction size, and I hope I get the math right, of about 500,000 each. So huge market, $11 billion a year generated in commissions to real estate brokers and real estate agents. That's just in the transaction, not counting the inspectors and mortgage brokers and everything else. And it's 75% of someone's net worth, their house. So when you think about it, it's sort of the nexus of the monthly budget. A lot of people think about FinTech and somebody's wallet, but the house is the biggest asset that most folks have. And for large segments of the market of buyers and sellers, the existing status quo doesn't work all that well. If anybody in the room has sold a property, particularly perhaps if you're outside downtown Toronto, it's a really slow process. It's quite cumbersome. It's stressful. You never know when it's actually going to transact, and it's a really complex process. And if there are any buyers in the room, I know I don't have to make that argument. Everybody knows how complex and stressful it can be. What's really interesting is that technology is no stranger in real estate. The internet and technology and the real estate market have kind of been meshing since about 2004. Many folks know Zillow, so I have to give actually Pete Flint a shout out here, who deserves some credit for this kind of perspective. But really since 2004, Zillow and Trulia have been pioneering how people find out what's for sale. What did things sell for? So they've been these informational platforms that have accumulated huge amounts of users, What's really interesting is that we seem to be moving beyond the informational platforms in tech and real estate and getting to a point where a lot of tech-enabled companies are actually moving really into the transaction. That's where we play at Properly. So there's a few great examples here. I'm pointing as if it's a slide, it's just me, which is kind of scary. Companies like Ribbon, companies like Fly Homes, these are companies that don't just help you find what's on the market, but they actually buy the home for you, which obviously makes a much more seamless transaction. And then there's a long list of companies these days that are actually buying homes from you. We fall into that category. So this movement from informational into transactional is happening largely because people are increasingly quite comfortable transacting online, the consumer behavior. Lots more data out there and lots more technology and great BI tools and whatnot, machine learning and AI tools to help actually crunch numbers and make sound predictions. And then there's just been this immense amount of capital flowing into the fintech real estate space. So really interesting transition moving from information to transactional. And as people move much more transactionally, we think there's really interesting opportunities how transactional platforms will start to offer brokerage or lending services. You could imagine a much more seamless transaction. There'll be much more renovations completed likely before people move into a home. And finally, maintenance could be outsourced and ongoing, all coordinated by that transactional platform. So a couple of learnings in 1 year of operating in Calgary, our only market, although our HQ is here in Toronto. Shout out to the folks at WestJet. We should talk later. Real estate, the biggest misconception is that it's about the home or it's about the market. It's really a people business, and it's one of the insights for us. And I think that extends throughout fintech in general, but this is a really emotional transaction. And so you got to meet people where they are. The best AI in the world is not necessarily going to help you transact or convert customers if you don't have a design type of mentality bred inside your real estate tech company. It's really difficult to build trust. I included this visual here, but I almost don't want folks to read all the comments here. I think this came from a news article about us. People are almost hardwired in real estate to be skeptical, to put it diplomatically, about different companies who offer to get involved into a transaction. And we think that's because there's just been such a lack of data. But that's changing. And so we'll continue to try to build trust. And finally, we think realtors and brokers, they're not going away. We get asked that question all the time. But ultimately, we think that the role might change quite dramatically as there's more and more of a premium put on advice. And we think that they could continue to play a really important role in providing that, but may not be rewarded so much for providing the discovery of what's for sale or the discovery of what a price ought to be. So I only had a couple minutes, and so those are some early learnings, but really happy that we have the opportunity to answer some questions, so I'll turn it over to the audience. Thanks very much for having us.
Sure, yeah. Hi, Nia. Thank you for the interesting talk. What are some of the ways that you're going about building trust with these customers? Is there like a course of action that you have, or is it just do what we say we're going to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's multifaceted. We try to talk about it every day. I'll go really, really tactical because I know many of you are building companies and whatnot. So I won't give you the generic answer. Things that we do, we talk about people first as a cultural norm within the company, and during onboarding, we talk a lot about what that means to us. When we recruit people, we talk and screen and look for that people first mentality, and we ask for detailed examples about how people could demonstrate that they hold that cultural norm kind of near and dear. And we, each week in our all hands meetings, we talk about customer stories, for example. So all of us take calls with customers on a weekly basis. We talk about some of those stories each week, and that kind of creates a DNA inside the company that inevitably we think will shine through externally. So I think it's all about building the muscle inside so that it's totally normal. One Facebook comment at a time, hopefully we'll win the day.
Hi, Sheldon. So Zillow, you mentioned Zillow because the 2018 flipping operation posted a fairly big loss. I'm sure you know that. So I guess my question is, what's your insight towards that and your plan for profitability in the long term?
Yeah, I mean, you got the ex-Uber guy, and you're asking questions about profitability, so it's a bit uncomfortable for me, and I don't know if I have the right to answer anything here. There's a tension constantly between growth and profitability, and so I think there's different stages in your company where you have to be able to prove you can dial one up and one down. So I think at this point, what's most important to us is predictable unit economics. And if we can demonstrate, we think, to the market that we can be quite predictable, that's the stage of the company that we're at. Broadly, we think this can be a really profitable business. And I won't go too deep right now, but not just what's exciting about this model is not necessarily just the profitability on one transaction, but the fact that for us and for companies like Zillow in their offers business, average hold period for a home is about 2.5 to 3 months. So you can actually generate a pretty attractive return on equity in one transaction, and then you can turn the capital 4, 5, 6 times. So if anyone wants to go really into the weeds, you could find me at the back later. But tough to offer any more details at this point.
Hi, Sheldon. I have 2 questions. The first one is, there is a company in Quebec called duproprio.com, and you didn't mention it. And it's an online tool that's provided for both buyers and sellers. And then the second question is, why as a customer would they come through your company? What's the value for them?
Yeah, Duproprio has done an amazing job of gaining what I think is about 25% share in Quebec. So it's a platform that is what is typically called for sale by owner. So rather than hiring a real estate agent, you list your property on your own. That model has scaled really well for them in Quebec. And we offer something that's entirely different from both of those two things. From the traditional market, you hire a realtor. Duproprio offers you sell on your own. We're offering to sell your house immediately. So if you don't want to do the work yourself to clean and paint and invite people into your home for showings and host open houses, get the dog and the kids and put them in the car and take them to the grandparents' house. If you don't want to do that, and you also don't want the uncertainty of not necessarily knowing when you can close, we're a really good fit.
Awesome. Thank you. That was great.
Thank you.